Hey everyone, I thought I'd just do a simple video for you today. It's called I Spy. It's a lesson I referenced in some of my other videos. And just before I get started, I'd like to pre-apologize for my dogs in the background. You will probably hear them. I'll try to cut them out in my video editing process afterwards. But if you hear some little clickety clacks in the background or any other noises, it's probably my dogs. So I'm going to pre-apologize for them. Anyways, so this game is called I Spy, and we introduced this at a pretty young age in the primary environment. This is a game that we introduce to a child when they first come into the classroom, and really this is all about getting to hear the different sounds in a word. And this is important. We put this in the writing section of the Montessori album because in order to write, which is a sound symbol process, you have to have the first component of that, which is sound. You have to know the sound before you can symbolize it, and this game helps you understand the sounds. And we want to isolate the sounds, and the easiest way to start isolating sounds is by isolating the first sound in each word. Then what comes next is, once that becomes really easy for the child, you want to go and you want to isolate the last sound in the word. And after that, you want to isolate the middle sound in the word. So isolating and being able to hear the middle sounds in a word is going to be the hardest. So it'll go first sound, last sound, and then the middle sound is the order of this game. So let me just give you an example of what this would look like in the Montessori classroom. I'd have a group of children. This is one of the Montessori lessons that you can have a group of children for. And I would start and I would pick up my first object and I would hold it in front of the child so the child can see it. And I would say, I have in my hand something that starts with the sound oh, oh. And the children would say log. Some might say branch. In this lesson, I'm going to do the word log because it's a simpler word. It has one beginning sound, one ending sound, one middle sound. It's a closed syllable. It's a lot more simple. So we're going to do log. So once I show them that, I'm going to go to the next object. Let me put these objects to the side actually real quick. And I'm going to hold up the next object. And I'm going to say, I have something in my hand that starts with the sound and then the children would say hat. I'd pick up the next object and I'd show the children and I would say, I have something in my hand that starts with the sound ah. And of course it's owl. I have something in my hand that starts with the sound r, r. And it's a rock. Now, for those of you getting into phonics for the first time, it's very popular for people to say but R should actually be pronounced more of a r sound. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the natural sound is r. If you think about the word rabbit, it's not an rabbit, it's a r rabbit. But there's another reason I introduce it this way, and that's because when you think about the R sound, we have later lessons that come along with the letter R and with the sounds for R, and those are called R-controlled vowels. Some people call them bossy R's. So there are lessons for the sound and of course we know that is ER, IR, UR. And so that's a different lesson, and we don't want to confuse we don't want to confuse the child by giving them the sound for until we're ready to introduce properly, which is a very specific sound and it's associated with vowels. So for this lesson, when you're introducing R in isolation, just say r. I understand different dialects. You might have a little bit different sound than what I am saying. I'm from the Midwest, so I say r. In other Orton Gillingham trainings, it might be slightly different. That's okay. My main goal is that it represents the word correctly and also doesn't confuse the child for later lessons with those R-controlled vowels. And then I have one last item, one last object. And this is, I would say, I have something in my hand that starts with the sound eh. Of course, that's an egg. So I'll have all the child sitting around me. I'll be presenting this on a rug, and I'll say, I spy something that starts with the sound and I might ask a specific child if they can find it, or I might just say, I spy, and see whichever child comes up with the answer first. You can do it either way. If you're working one-on-one, obviously, that child will just look through all of them and see if they can figure it out. Now, in Montessori, we never correct the child. So if the child goes to and says owl, I wouldn't correct the child. What I would do is I would just make a note to myself that the child is not hearing the sound. They just haven't gotten that isolation yet. And really what we want to do is just keep a record in our head about when a child is starting to progress with hearing that isolation. And a lot of times playing this game, this is a great game for children to play on their own. This does not have to be a teacher-led game. A lot of times I'll depend on my older children in the classroom to lead this game with younger children. So this is a great game for children to play as a group as well as being teacher-led. And what I would want to do though is really make sure I'm taking some time to observe if a child really is isolating that first sound. So let me do another example. I spy something that starts with the sound r, r. And of course the child would say, hopefully, rock. Now let's get a little bit more complicated. Let's say you're doing really well. You've got all these beginning sounds down. You're ready for the next challenge. And I am going to switch it up a little bit. And let me go through this again. Maybe I'll just do 3 objects this time. I'll say, I have in my hand something that ends with the sound g, g, and log, g. I have something in my hand that ends with the sound t, t. This one might be confusing. I have something in my hand that ends with the sound ol. And that ol might be a little bit confusing because when you hear ol, you're going to think of the log. But the child has to remember that this is an ending sound. So now let's play I spy. All right, I spy something that ends with the sound t. I spy something that ends with the sound t. And of course, it's hat. Or you could say, I spy something that ends with the sound ol. Owl. And when you're finished with that, if the child gets the ending sound really easily, you want to go back and do the middle sounds. So for log, it would be ah. Hat would be ah. And owl would be w. And that's a really tricky one. Ow, w, ol. So all the sounds are there for owl. It is phonetic. You can sound it out. It's not a red word. It's not a puzzle word. All the sounds are there. You just have to be very articulate about it. So anyways, that's my presentation on I Spy. That's a great game for helping a child develop their ear and listening for sounds. And like I said before, in the Montessori classroom, we put this in the writing section because before you can symbolize a sound, you have to know what the sounds are, right? You have to know what order. And the benefit to this is the child's going to hear all the sounds, and when they move to the sandpaper letters, they're very familiar with these sounds, and now we can show them the symbol for these sounds. And once they progress from the sandpaper letters, they're going to go to the movable alphabet, and it's going to be really cool to see how this all comes together with the movable alphabet, because let's say the child wants to write the word hat, and they get out the movable alphabet, and they start thinking to themselves, hat, 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 at, and then they start breaking down those sounds much like they did in I Spy. So really this is helping them a lot with getting to figure out how they're going to write words by listening to every sound in the word. So anyways, that's all I have for you today. I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next video.